Cold turkey might be great on sandwiches, but there's a better way to break your bad habits. I'm talking about my sponsor, Fume, and they look at the problem in a different way. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses all natural flavors. Instead of bad, Fume is good. It's a habit that you can feel free to enjoy, and it makes replacing your bad habit easy. It fills the void in a natural, guilt-free way. Your Fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial, and it's designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting. It gives your fingers lots to do, which is great for de-stressing. My favorite flavor is crisp mint. Fume is flavorful, and it feels fresh. Fume has served over 150,000 customers and has thousands of success stories. There's no reason that can't be you. Join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today. Head to tryfume.com/Chael or scan the QR code. Just make sure you use the code Chael to get 10% off. All right, guys, talk to me about light heavyweight. How would you do it? How would you do it if you're in charge? What are possible scenarios if you were in charge? Now, you got to make sure that you understand your task, some of which you can choose and some of which you have to deal with. By example, I want a title fight at light heavyweight. Okay. So you don't get to go, well, you know what'd be great is Conor McGregor, light heavyweight. Oh, gosh, no, please. Alex Pereira is the champion. Who's he going to fight? And the reason I put it to you like that, we got to put Pereira in there, okay, at light heavyweight. But we want to screw Ankalaev. We want to make sure we don't put Pereira with Ankalaev. They're complete opposite fighters. And history says Ankalaev not only beats him, he beats him as history says we just gave Ankalaev an easy fight. Now, I got a big star here with Pereira, and he doesn't do much, but he does something. Like, it's not a lot to paint up your face and come in a headdress to the weigh-ins, but it's a lot more than anybody else does. And it's not a lot to not just walk to the ring, but to saunter to the ring as though you're looking for prey, stop at one point and shoot an arrow at the guy. It's not much, but it's a hell of a lot more than anybody else does. Riding a hoverboard around while shadow boxing isn't much. It's a hell of a lot more than everybody else does. So before I take that guy that I just described that just got an amazing knockout over a former world champion on top of the bill of the largest card an audience has ever absorbed, before I take that and give him the worst matchup in the division, tell me what my other options are. Now, if I don't have any other options, right? I mean, every now and again, I will show an integrity to the rankings, since I'm the one that created it. Like, every now and then, I'm going to do that. But I don't want to, and it's sure not going to be the first decision I make. But tell me how I get around it. And I thought I knew. What I was planning to do is have Alexander Raychik beat Yuri Prochazka, and he was on his way to doing it, and then I would have had my problem solved. But because that didn't happen, and I can't go to Yuri Prochazka because I already had that, I'm looking for some parity. I can't bring in Jan Blachowicz because we did that to get Pierre to the number one contendership. What I'm saying is I don't have all the options. And if I did, if I could just do anything, I would simply turn to my greatest light heavyweight ever, Jon Jones, and I would tell him, trim yourself up, you're going back home. And for his retirement match, I would put him in there with Pierre, but we're not there. Conversation is around essentially anything except Ankalaev. For example, conversation started by my champion Pereira, who doesn't do much, but he does more than anybody else, actually has him up at heavyweight. Conversation is aligning him with Tom Aspinall. And I don't hate that idea if I knew I was going to get Jon Jones for 2 more. If I knew Jon Jones was going to come back and then look to unify, and no disrespect to Stipe, by the way. Those two are going to fight. You understand my point. I could have just said Stipe right there. I just happened to say Jones, right? Whoever wins that match. If I knew they were going to come unify, I would just move on with life. So if I knew I was going to get Jones versus either Pierre or Aspinall, whoever won that fight, I would make that fight. But I don't know that, so help me out at light heavy. And I think therein lies a lot of your problems. I think therein lies the most probable matchup, which is going to be Ankalaev. And like everything that I just stated for you, you want to know one person that's never going to agree to that? Is Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira isn't going to look at the board and go, Ankalaev is a problem for me, or he's a squash match for me, or he's my hardest opponent, and therefore I won't do it. Alex Pereira is so goddamn macho. He'll look at Ankalaev and say, that's probably a squash match. It certainly is historically. That is my hardest challenge. Make sure I have that guy next. That's how he works. Like if you're willing to go up and deal with Tom Aspinall, who many believe to be the greatest heavyweight. Michael Bisping, a Hall of Famer, believes Aspinall's the best heavyweight we've ever seen. He put him in front of Fedor. I'm just telling you, some people believe it. Well, got to be pretty good, right? Whether you go with Bisping or not, you at least concede to the point he's got to be pretty good. So if he is willing to go on and take that guy, of course he's going to take on Ankalaev. But we're not looking out for him right now. We're looking out for ourselves, and we don't want to see the fight. And moreover, we don't want to see the fight if our guy goes down. Because I could lay out a 4-5 sellout, box office moving, monetizable plan for you that involves Pereira right now, win or lose. I could give you 5 fights right now, regardless of outcome, that will swing a needle for Pereira. I can't give you one with Ankalaev, not one. So, what do you do? And by the way, I'm not speaking to the idea that a guy's got to be flashy and got to have all these bells and whistles and things. I'm just sharing with you that if you're doing that matchmaking, you're not looking to just do checkers. You're looking for a more longer-term play. If you put Pierre and Ankalaev together and you think you're a smart guy and you argue that's what the rankings and this guy said and that's the right match to do, fair enough. I got to remind you you're doing a business and you tell me you're going to do it anyway. Fair enough. But I'm going to say, when they fight, what does that lead to? What does that draw you to? And it's not as though you're not without an answer, right? I mean, you could start to find some pretty... Yuri Prochazka, get him back in the mix. And of course, you do have the Raychik, and you get him back in the mix for Ankalaev to take on. What are you doing with Pierre? And does he stay there? Does he leave weight classes? Last time he lost in a weight class, he left the whole damn division. That's the bad news. The good news is he became king of that division. So the only way we're going to get Alex to heavyweight, quite possibly, is to get him beat at 205. I mean, I would go a step further for you. If Alex was to lose at 205 pounds, I will predict for you, you don't see him at 205 pounds again. Now, I'm just using what he did at 185, and I know that was a bigger cut. I understand there's some lifestyle changes, and there was a reason he needed to go up, and his friend and Glover was there, and now that's not... I do understand those things. But you are dealing with a level of success that is seldomly ever seen. 2 different sports, multi-division, in both, told he can't on everything, and quite frankly, should not have been able to. In 2024, if your background is in striking and you have 0 competitive grappling, you should not, in a mixed rules match, right? I mean, what Pierre has done is every bit as much of what Francis went and did against Fury. Every lesson we've learned, that can't happen, but it did. And so it's one of those spots that if you were the matchmaker at 205 pounds, the bad news about doing Ankalaev and Pierre, the bad news, and let's just get it out of the way, the bad news is now I can't do a press conference. Just for example, if that's my main event, I now cannot do a press conference, and I like to do press conferences. So my workaround, whenever I have that happen, is I just put another title fight on the card and Even though it's a co-main, it's a title fight, it's going to cost me a fortune, but then those two guys can do a little of that back and forth. We can hide this fact and we can get on to the next one. And the upside, if Ankalaev beats him, if Chael's right, that's the way and that's the only way you're going to get what you really want to see. I mean, what do we really want to see, guys? Want to see Pereira defend his light heavyweight title? I did see it. Yes, I did want to see it, but I did. Want to see him win the light heavyweight title? I did, but I already saw it. What do we really want, guys? We want Pereira to get his shot at heavyweight. We want to see if history can be made. We want to see if he can go champ. We want to see if he is the greatest fighter the Octagon has ever seen. And if we have to get him beat, if he's going to prove his greatness, but defeat comes along the way, if he's one of these guys that falls forward, and thus far is exactly what he is, then maybe Ankalaev is exactly the guy we should be calling.